Today's episode, we're going to look at the Revere Ware collection. And Revere Ware is a type of cookware that is similar to the cookware that Farberware was. The only difference is that the cookware on the bottom, and I'm sorry, we have a little guest visitor here. This is Bacchus. He's our American Kitchen cat, okay? Roxy, our American Kitchen pup, is over in the kitchen drinking, so you may see her. But Bacchus is a star, so he needed to make an appearance. So apologies for that interruption. But Revereware is similar in a way to Farberware in that the bottom is a different metal than the rest of the cookware. The rest of the cookware is all stainless steel, the interior and the exterior, except for the lip and the bottom of the cookware. And unlike Revereware or Farberware, which is aluminum clad, this is copper clad. And this is a much thinner layer of copper. It's a different process than Farberware, which basically has a disc of aluminum, a 1/8 inch thick disc of aluminum bonded to the bottom. This is really a very thin layer of copper. So you may say, a thin layer? That doesn't sound as good as Farberware. Well, depending on who you ask, they may agree with you. The difference is that copper is way more expensive than aluminum. That's number one of why it's thinner. But number two, it's also, copper is probably one of the best conductors of heat and electricity. The only other one that might be better is gold or titanium or really expensive metals. But in terms of your run-of-the-mill metals, copper is king. Okay, that's why your wires are made of copper. That's why cookware, and this is not copper cookware. This is copper clad cookware on the bottom. But even that is a stretch. This is literally just a copper bottom pan. So copper is a better conductor of heat and electricity, and in this case heat. So it doesn't need to be as thick as the aluminum. So that's the first thing about the Revereware. Also, Revere, you may think, oh, Revere, as in Paul Revere. Yes, this company was started by the Paul Revere, and it was started during the post-revolutionary times. So this company, the cookware Revereware, is made or was made by the Revere aluminum and brass, or I'm sorry, copper and brass company. And they made all manner of things with those, but this was the cookware that they came up with. So let's get into the cookware. Also, there's something important to note. The Revereware, you may notice, if you can, the handle is slightly different here. This one has these two rivets with a screw on the side. This is Revereware that's pre-1968 Revereware. And depending on who you are and what your collection is and what your preference is, this is kind of a little bit more desirable. I personally like the post 1978. I like the handle. I don't like the rivets here, so I like that it doesn't have the rivets. I also think they used more copper later on, and I think Zeta in their video also did a little test and found that there's more copper in the post 68 cookware. But the cool thing about the pre-1968 cookware is that that cookware had some additional pieces. So this piece in my hand, this is a 6-quart skillet. That was discontinued with the changeover to the 1968 period. When they went to the other handle, and they also changed the logo, so it's just Paul Revere and it says 1801 Revere Ware. And what I like about the newer style ones is it tells you the size of the pan, whereas this just has basically the pattern and a Revere Ware, and it says copper clad stainless steel Revere Ware. So that's the old logo. This is the new logo. And the new logo gives you the place of manufacture as well as the size, which I think is great because, if you collect cookware, you know the sizes. But if you don't, then it's a little tricky to determine the size. So it's nice to know what you have in your collection, and that size, or the post 68, gives you that size of the cookware. Also, where was Revere Ware made? Well, the Revere Brass and Copper Company was in Massachusetts. However, the cookware was made in 2, maybe 3 locations. So in the literature, it says Rome, New York, Chilton, Illinois, and Riverside, California. I've never seen ones with Riverside, California in there, but I live on the East Coast. So that was likely where they manufactured the cookware for the West Coast sales. So if anyone knows anything about what was Revere Ware in Riverside, California, I would love to know. So please feel free to share some knowledge in the comments. So these are the collection. And this really had a lot of similarities to Farberware. They were kind of neck and neck competing. So they had a very similar range of sizes. They had these are all the 6-inch skillet. They had a 7-inch skillet, and they had a lot more skillets. So they had an 8-inch skillet. They had a 9-inch skillet. They had, that was a 9-inch. Okay, so this is your 10. There is a 12. I have it. It's in the shed. I couldn't risk falling and getting it, but I will do a special episode with my additional Revere Ware pieces that are in hiding. So we have the 10-inch skillet, and that one is in some rough shape. So I may actually look for another one of them. Then we have the 9-inch, and that's a pretty rare size. It's usually odd numbers. Then they have the 8-inch skillet, and then these are both the 7-inch skillet. So there's a pre-1978 skillet, and there's a post-68 skillet. I'm sorry, I think I said 78, but 68. Okay, and the initial ones were made in Rome, New York. I think they eventually moved all the production to Chilton, Illinois, but in the beginning, some were made in Chilton, Illinois, some were made in Rome, New York. Okay, so those are your skillets. And there was, like I said, there was a 12-inch, and I have it, but it's hidden. And all of these have matching lids. And just like with the Farberware, the lids are interchangeable between the skillets and the saucepans. and things like that. So you didn't need all these lids. I have a lid for just about every piece, and the ones I don't have lids for, I am going to get lids for because I just like to have that in my collection. So that was the skillets. Now, just like Farberware in the 70s and 80s when we had the French cooking revolution, they also came out with a lovely omelet pan. Okay, this is the 8-inch omelet pan, and this is the 10-inch, just like Farberware had, except Farberware also had a elusive 12-inch omelet pan that I don't have, and I would love to get. So if I find that, I will get that. But I have the 8-inch of the Farberware, and I have the 8-inch of the Revere Ware, but I also have the 10-inch of the Revere Ware. And these omelet pans are really, really nice. Farberware pans, as you remember, they're frying pans. They had a very straight side. So they really needed these omelet pans in order to effectively make an omelet. Revere Ware has a pretty nice, if we look back at here, they have a pretty nice sloped side. It's not as nice as the omelet pans are, but it's a pretty gentle slope. So they really, you could probably make a good omelet in those pans, but these will make you an exceptional omelet. It'll slide out real easily. And the omelet, this is for like a bigger omelet, a rolled omelet. This one is more for like a smaller folded omelet, like a personal breakfast omelet. This would be more of an entree omelet. So those were their specialty pans. Now, before we go on to the saucepans and stock pots, let's take a look at the one electric that they made. So unlike Farberware, they really didn't get into the electrics. They did, however, make an electric skillet because if you weren't making an electric skillet, you weren't in the game. So they did make an electric skillet. It has a nice thermostatic control, just like Farberware, and really all of them. They all had thermostatic controls. Some of them had them in the handles. I'll do a whole show just on electric skillets, and we'll revisit these Revere and Farberware ones, but we'll also see some other manufacturers. There were a lot of big companies that were making huge quantities of electric skillets. And this one, I really have to take this apart because it feels extremely heavy down here. It almost feels like it's the oil core. So the waterless cooking companies like Healthcraft and Regal and West Bend, in their waterless cooking, which we'll do a whole episode on that, they made electric skillets, but instead of having just the element, they had an oil core for their electric skillet. So instead of it just heating the pan, it heated this encapsulated oil in the pan, and then that heated the bottom of the pan. I think that's what's in here because this is really heavy. I mean, it's a really sturdy, heavy duty electric skillet, and I really enjoy it. And it has a steaming trivet, and the steaming trivet's really unique. It looks like a Chinese lantern. I really, really like that steaming insert. So that's their steaming insert. And then, because unlike Farberware, remember Farberware has the aluminum clad bottom, just like their cookware. Revere Ware did not put the copper clad on the bottom of their electric skillet. So, to let you know that you're dealing with Revere ware, on the lid here, and they did this for a lot of their one-off pieces. They put the handle is this like interlocking circles or overlapping circles, and one of the circles is copper, and the other two it's sandwiched between two stainless steel. So that's kind of your little cue that it's Revere ware. And they did a lot of little one-off pieces that had this. So they had a really cool um, asparagus pot, and that has like a seahorse on it, and the lid is like that. It was really cool. I wish I had got that, but if I come across it, I will pick it up because that was super cool. So that is their kind of more contemporary nod to Revere ware. So when Revere was making things that were not necessarily the copper clad cookware, they would do this handle, this knob handle. And it's the other cool thing is I love Revere ware's handles. They have these really nice chunky handles, and they have the overlapping circles. So this contemporary handle is kind of like a more sophisticated nod to their handle and to their copper clad cookware. Okay, so that's the one electric. So of course, when we do the cooking videos, this will be showcased. Okay, so I'm going to use this in the next episode to make a very special schnitzel that is my namesake, Schnitzel Josephi. And I had this schnitzel in Germany. It's really unique. If you've never been to this particular uh, beer hall in Munich, you would never have had this schnitzel because it was made specifically by the chef in that beer hall. And it's really good. It's really unique. You'll really like it if you like schnitzel. So I'm not going to talk more about it because I want you to watch that video. Okay, so we're going to go on to the saucepans now. So again, they had a unique size. They had the same sizes that the Revere ware had, or I'm sorry, the Farber ware with the half sizes. So this is the 1 quart, and this is the 1.5 quart. So they had the half quart, then they had the 2 quart. I believe there's a 2.5 quart, but this is unique to them. And this is kind of like your butter warmer size. It's a little bigger than a butter warmer size. And I will use this also when we make the schnitzel. I'm going to make 2 sauces with this. I'm going to make pork 2 ways. One's the schnitzel, one's the French way, and I'm going to make 2 sauces. One is a French sauce, and the other one is a beer sauce. So look out for those 2 episodes when we finish with this series. So those are going to be your cooking videos related to Revere ware. And then I use this to make the roux because it's a perfect size for that. You can make a nice amount of roux, and then you can pop it into the sauces to thicken it. So this is a 3/4 size. I've never seen any manufacturer other than Revere ware that makes this size. Lots of people make half quart sizes. Lots of people make 1 quart sizes. Some people make 1.5 quart sizes. But 3/4 size, that is a Revere ware exclusive. And it has a lid. And again, the lid is in the shed. I can't get to it. I don't know where it fell to. It was with this, and it clangled out when I was trying to get the boxes. Okay, so that is your sauce pots. Oh, there's also a 3-quart here, and there's a 4-quart as well, which I don't have yet. And in the pre-68 Revere Ware, there is a 5-quart. And it is really cool because it's like this, and it's just tall. It's like a real tall stock pot or sauce pot. Okay, so those are their sauce pots. And then they had their sauce pans. And the sauce pans, they came in basically 2 sizes. They had, or sauce pots, I should say. They had the, I'm going to use this one. They had the 4.5 quart. So the saucepans ended in the 4 in the contemporary ones, and then the sauce pots started with the 4.5. That was the one, and then there was the 6 quart, which is this one. After that, they didn't call them sauce pots. They called them stock pots. And the stock pots went from 8 quarts to 20 quarts. So if you remember from the Farberware episodes, the stock pots, or sauce pots as they called them, only went up to 16. That was the largest one. In Revere Ware, they went all the way up to 20 quarts. That's a pretty big stock pot. That is a very large commercial stock pot. So that's really great. And speaking of commercial, they did do some institutional or commercial cookware as well. But before we get into that, I'm going to show you this very interesting pan. When I looked at this, this is a 1 quart, and this is actually like meant to be a deep fryer. I don't have the basket for it. I don't really know how this would work because it's pretty shallow, but this pan was made as a deep fryer. So there's a basket that goes in here, and you're supposed to put oil, but it's only 1 quart. So I was very perplexed by this, but before the episode, I was able to find that this is in fact a fryer, like with a frying basket. Just like Farberware, they made a steamer insert, and that works really nice in this. I think that I'm going to use this pan as a steamer, not as a fryer, because I think the steaming is much more logical. Okay, so that is the main line. Now, this is the one and only stock pot that I have. This, I believe, is a 12 quart. Okay, that's a big pan or a big pot, and that's only a 12 quart. So this is what their stock pots look like. And notice they have a different handle. They had these handles because they needed to be heavier. Some of the stock pots have the traditional phenolic handles and the copper bottom. But this that I'm going to talk about here, this is where Revere Ware went. So before we go into the trajectory of Revere Ware, I just want to show you one more piece that I really love. And I only have one of them. But this is a line from Revere Ware that is called the patio line. And this was not made for very long. If you can see the logo, I'm sure it might be not very clear in the picture here, but this is pre-1968. This line was marketed to be used on the patio, on the barbecue. And these are really institutional pans, especially the stock pots and the sauce pots and the coffee pot. They are real heavy duty, thick gauge. They are nothing like this. This is pretty thin. That's one of the complaints about Revere Ware is that the metal is pretty thin. It doesn't need to be, because as long as you know how to use the stove, you don't really need it to be that thick. But this is thicker. It's noticeably thicker. It's shaped differently. This is a very French institutional shape. The handle's different. The handle is very contemporary for that time. This is like what French cookware and European cookware uses in the professional kitchen, this tubular handle. And this is not even just a tubular handle. It has this grippy part to give you like a better handle. It has a nice copper bottom on here, very long up the sides copper, as opposed to just kind of looping over. So the shape, the depth of the copper onto the pan, the tubular handles, all of that lets you know that you're dealing with the patio line, which again was made during the 50s, during the barbecue era, when everyone was building a barbecue. We're going to do an episode. My house is very mid-century. My grandfather built this beautiful brick built-in barbecue. He probably never used it. I use my gas grill, but it's really fun to use that built-in patio grill barbecue, and I really want to use it a lot more. So we will do a video where we make some stuff in that, and we'll use our Revere Ware patio line. I only have this, which is the 6-inch. They have a 6, an 8, a 12, a 10, and a 12. They are extremely expensive. They are almost impossible to find. They must have made them for a couple years. They remind me of the GE patio cart. So General Electric around the same time made this amazing patio cart. If you have ever seen it, or if you are interested in mid-century stuff, look it up. It's got a huge chunky plug, like a 220 big plug that you would have to make an outdoor outlet for. It has wheels, it has an oven, it has burners, it has an electric grill, it has like a rainbow umbrella. It is so cool. And of course, it's 1950s, so it is that super cool, beautiful aquamarine teal color too. They are really cool. They are extremely expensive if you can find them. And if you find them, you found like treasure, because they're almost non-existent. They must have sold none of them, and the ones that they sold, people must have gotten rid of like right away, because they're very hard to find. But that's what this reminds me of. It reminds me of what Revere Ware did, what GE did, and bet on the barbecue and bet on the patio, and it was a losing bet. But it just goes to show you what a cool, innovative company this was, to go out on a limb and try and make a market for outdoor cookware. So it's really worth it, but it's very hard to find and it's very expensive. So as I build my collection, we'll do our episode out there. All right, so that is the legacy of Revere Ware. Revere Ware then started going into other types of cookware. They started to get away from this, and they started to actually really get into some more heavy-duty cookware. The cookware that they kind of finished out with before they started being imported was really kind of innovative cookware for the time. So they went to this encapsulated bottom. Again, Farberware did the same thing. So you can find the very last days of American-made Farberware is going to have this disc bottom on there. But the stainless steel is much thicker. The handles, I don't know if this one says it, but there's another one here. The handles, I don't think it says it on there, but I think on the literature it says cookware made in the USA, handles made in Germany. And I have a lot of cookware from other countries too, especially Germany, France, and Italy. They made some really great cookware that I love. And the big company of housewares in Germany is a company called WMF. And they have a strikingly similar handle to this. So I would imagine that Revere Ware was getting WMF to make these handles for them. Okay, but these are European style cookware. And I don't know if they were doing this to market it more internationally or they were just moving that way. This was coming about at the age of flat top glass stoves as opposed to the coils. So these discs were better for that cookware because they give you a nice big chunky heat source at the bottom. But notice it's tapered up here. This is the only downside of this is that the heat, if you use the wrong size flame, if you're using too high of a flame or too large of a burner or the temperature is too high, the heat's going to wick up the sides of these pans and you're going to get burning on the inside around the perimeter here. So that's the only bad thing about these disc cookware. I actually really like the disc cookware, especially the European manufacturers, because that's what they did. And they did that because when we were using coil electric stoves, they were using cast iron plate stoves. So the cast iron act as a diffusing plate and spread the heat more evenly as opposed to the raw coil, which was, a real intense flame, especially if you had it up high. So the other pieces, though, they didn't really make very different. So this pan and this pan, they're the same size. The only difference is that the bottom of this one is copper clad and the bottom of this one is aluminum disc clad. So that's the only thing that was different in terms of the design. And then they went to this more contemporary look. Okay, so then they went to this new handle. The pans looked a little different. This one's very different because this is the 1.5 quart. So, oops. So that's equivalent to this. You can see it's very different. The handle's different. It has these very nice pouring spouts on there. So this pan screams saucepan, and it's very nice. And they have these nice German handles, and it just looks different. It's a new look for Revere Ware. And then after that, then they started making it imported. They started making it in Korea, and then I'm sure now it's probably what's left of Revere Ware is probably made in China, maybe Vietnam or Thailand. Those are also places where they make a lot of cookware, but none of it's made in the U.S. anymore of these lines. So if you're looking for U.S. made cookware and you're looking for Revere Ware, your thrift stores, eBay are the best bets. And you can find some really great stuff. You can find stuff in brand new in box on eBay. you're going to pay this cookware. For all the haters of this cookware is very collectible. People love this cookware. They want it. They still want it. It's not very easy to find at the thrift stores, and when you find it, it's like this. It's banged up. It's used and abused. So if you find good stuff, you gotta pick it up if that's your collection. So my collection, it needs a little TLC. I need to pick some better pieces, look at the ones that I need to replace with a better one. So that's my Revere collection. It's not as extensive as the Farberware. I kind of was collecting for a while. I was collecting Farberware and Revereware kind of neck and neck, and then I stopped. I've completed pretty much my Farberware collection, but my Revereware collection needs a little TLC and a little bit more attention. But that really is because I don't know why. This cookware is much seems to be much more collectible and in demand than the Farberware. And I don't know if that's because there's just more Farberware, but this was excuse me. This was equally like neck and neck. These were your big cookware brands. That's why I started with them. They were your juggernauts of mid-century cookware. If you wanted to buy new, modern stainless steel cookware, it was either Farberware or Revereware, or the one that we'll be doing next in our vintage cookware or vintage kitchen collection, which is Echoware. So many of you, especially if you're vintage collectors, are familiar with Echo and their utensils. Echo Flint, which was like a line of Echo. So it was Echoware, Flint, and they also made knives. They made everything. And they were so big into utensils and kitchenware, they were actually investigated as a monopoly. And because they would just buy up. If it was a kitchen gadget or a utensil manufacturer, they would buy them up and they would just mold them into sorry, I got a little dust in my throat. They would just roll them into their line. So they made everything. And even though these are well known, probably better sold was Echoware. And Echoware, they did it all. They had so many different lines. They had a line like Revereware. They had a line that they marketed as waterless cooking. They had designs on their lines. They had different handles. They had everything. That company was insane with what they were able to do. And their cookware lines were massive. So that's going to be our next vintage kitchen collection. Before that, though, we're going to have a couple of episodes where we highlight using the one electric from Revereware, which is the electric skillet, and then we're going to make some sauces with the pan. So those 2 episodes will be coming up soon. All right, like, share, subscribe. Invite your friends to the party. There's a lot more that's going to be coming, and I can't wait to share it with you. Bye, Kitchen Kings and Queens. Have a great day.